Hey guys. Well, listen, with everything going on, we've decided to open up the box, Pandora's box, so to speak. We expose our people to a lot of great tools, a lot of great people that are doing amazing things even right now. So we decided, hey, listen, as leaders, what should we be doing to help other leaders make sure that they have the right tools in their toolbox? And so we are opening that up so that you can have a glimpse of what we get exposed to on a pretty regular basis. I hope that you can take some great things away. I hope that you can implement some great things, because here's what I know about leaders. We love pouring into other people, but if we don't pour into ourselves first, it doesn't do a whole lot of good. So I hope you enjoy. I hope that you get some great things, and I hope you're able to retool your toolbox so that you can show up not only for yourself, but for those that you're leading.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the big day today. So excited. Today we were talking about how do we continue to stay connected with all of you out there. And one of the topics of conversation is literally like, how do we deal with everything that's going on? We've got uncertainty, we've got challenges, we've got overload in our lives. And it was awesome the other day. I just happened to be scrolling through Facebook, which everybody's doing that more than they've ever done before. And I saw one of our really good friends, Katie Kleager, down in Grand Junction, and she made a post that really spoke to me and what I knew that our agents were going through. And so it literally was, I really feel it was an act of God that just, that I happened to just see her post that day. And I'm so excited to be talking about resilience in overload. A couple housekeeping things before we actually start getting into this is I want to make sure that everybody's on mute. So if you can make sure that you are muted, that would be awesome. And then the other thing is that if you have questions, there is the chat box area, and I've got my great commentator over there. James is going to be making sure that any of those questions that you guys have, they're going to get answered at the end of this episode. So obviously Josh Kalinowski, Coldwell Banker, the Legacy Group, and I'm so happy to be talking with Katie Kleager today. She has been a great friend to Kate and I. I got to know her husband a couple years ago. Jimmy and I work and run in the Kingsman Group, and then of course Jimmy is also another real estate agent. He's with Coldwell Banker down there in Grand Junction. And Katie, I'm not going to do you justice if I try to say your entire background. So, Kate, would you just give everybody an idea of who you are and what you do for a living right now, and maybe just a little bit of your background?
Okay, sure. I'll try and make it short and sweet. So, I am a child and family therapist, licensed professional counselor. And so I work a lot with obviously children and families. My my primary therapeutic skill is doing play therapy. So I really enjoy that aspect of the counseling. Um, a little bit about my background. So my husband Jimmy is a retired lieutenant colonel infantry officer. He served 20 years in the Army before we retired. So our family has been through a lot of ups and downs in terms of the military life. We've been through 3 deployments, combat deployments. So I know what, it's like to be on the home front of that deployment, having to basically hold down the fort from the home front with toddlers and being in, multiple different professional careers at the same time, and having to worry about a loved one downrange on the battlefield. So I've also, had some experience with dealing with hardships in other areas of my life, being a parent, being a professional, all those normal things that we as families go through I've experienced. So I first and foremost want to just say I have a lot of heartfelt empathy in this whole situation with you all and for you all. So I just want to express that before I kind of dive into the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is resilience. Because I know that resilience is not something that's easy to obtain. It takes time and a lot of courage and strength to build that. So that's a little bit about my background, and I'll kind of leave it there with that piece of it.
Yeah, yeah, you were really high level on that, and I just want to make sure that I want the audience to know. And here we have an audience of we have real estate agents, we have professional women that are outside of real estate, and then we also have obviously we have moms that are now having to deal with a lot more on their shoulders. That at the end of the day that they didn't have this before, and so I really know that your message is going to speak to them very specifically because even though you talked a little bit about what that life was like a little bit with Jimmy and him being in the military. I mean, the truth of the matter is that he was going on these missions, and you wouldn't hear from him for months, and you didn't know how he was doing. You didn't know if he was alive. I mean, so to put yourself in that situation, and we talk about resilience. We know that we know that you have children, and just the challenges that you and Jimmy were faced. You as a mom were faced trying to do your best to raise different personalities and those different challenges that you faced with your children. And then of course obviously another thing that I know that you went through too is just the loss of a loved one. You've been there, and so you really know the pain of that and how resilience was really built up in your life, not just because you understand it from the psychology part of it, but because you've lived it. And so let's just dive into resilience. First of all, can you just give us an explanation of what resilience is?
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone's probably heard of the term resilience, but what really is it? So basically, resilience means your ability to recover or sort of bounce back from difficulties, with adversity, with conflict, with failure, with any kind of setback in life. It's just your inner emotional strength to conquer or to bounce back from those challenges.
Okay.
So that, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you just keep going. I was going to say, I got another question to follow that up, but yeah, just keep going if you want to
Oh,
explain more.
okay. Sounds good. So when we speak on resilience, there are different factors that define a person that has resilience. And some of those we look at a person who is flexible, who's adaptable, who can accept the hardship for what it is, right? A lot of it requires being self aware. So, being aware of our strengths and our weaknesses, accepting those weaknesses, and being able to find resources that can help during those times of trials. For me, that may be my spiritual piece, of me, finding those resourceful people that can help me on a spiritual level or psychological level or just an emotional friendship level. So finding the resources to help. And then a big part of it is developing an optimistic outlook. I think this is probably the aspect of resilience that is the hardest for us as humans to develop because our brain is so good at automatically going to the negative, automatically going to the worry and the fear and all of those negative emotions. So those can quickly take over in our lives to kind of guard that resilience. However, with saying that, it's really, really important to acknowledge feelings in kind of that self-awareness because we're real. We all have emotions. We all have feelings. It's okay to feel anger, sadness, fear. It's okay to vent to, that resourceful person. It's okay to say, you know what, I just need to vent. and let it go. I did that with Jimmy the other day when I was cleaning up pine needles in the backyard by our pool. And I had a few choice words with him and said, "We are done with the pine needles. The pine tree is coming out." I had a lot of, negative view on that. So that's just a small example, but I get it when people say, I'm tired of people saying just be positive through this, right? Well, it is hard to be positive. So it's important to acknowledge the feelings and just to say that, you feel like garbage today. This is really hard. This sucks, whatever. I think it's really important to acknowledge that. But it's also important to kind of move beyond that, and say, that's the way I feel. But having that hope that things will get better and that you will move forward in a positive way.
One of the things Kate and I love listening to Brene Brown, and one of the tacks that she said that really helped us out was when they came together at the end of the day through a busy day, they would tell each other kind of where they were at on that level. So on a scale of 1 to 100, where they were at, and so I'm at a 20, and so the other person needed to know that they needed to step in at an 80. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have a way, like, when you are frustrated and you need to get that out, just like with you and the pine needles, is there a way that you're able to set that message up as opposed to just blowing up in the situation and getting so frustrated and now you've completely offended your spouse on the other end?
Hmm. Well, I think, being honest, being able to check yourself, having that self-awareness when you are starting to feel that anger, frustration, whatever is building up, being able to know that that's coming and find that place to be able to step away, maybe take a couple of breaths, or whatever you need to do to walk away so that you can gather your thoughts, right? Because you don't want your emotions just to take over. Our brains will automatically go to the release of that feeling and that emotion without thinking, because it's a fight or flight response, right? And when we are in a state of frustration and anger, our brains kind of shut down and we can't think logically, right? So that's why it's so important to recognize in our bodies when we're feeling that stress and that frustration, to be able to say, "Oh, hey, hold on, I'm starting to feel shaky and irritated. I need to go outside for a minute and catch my breath," right? Or whatever you need to do, go punch a pillow or scream into a pillow or whatever, right? Before
Mhm.
you say something that's hurtful, or do something hurtful to yourself or others or any object. Um, so that's what I would recommend initially. And then, just telling your spouse, like I did with Jimmy, "Okay, I'm just venting here. All right. So please just hear me out. I'm going to say a lot of probably really bad words right now, but I'm just getting it out." So then
Yeah.
they know that it's not like a personal attack on them, right? And that you're not just complaining, which you kind of are, but that's okay, right? So just allowing them to know that this is what I'm getting ready to do.
Have you had to have the conversation with Jimmy? I mean, I'm sure he's a fixer, right? He wants to fix the situation. Have you worked with him and helped him understand, like, just like you said, like, I'm just venting, like, don't try to fix the problem. I just want to vent to you. I mean, is that, because I know that I'm a fixer and I've had to learn repeatedly to say, are you just venting or do you want me to fix the problem? So,
Yes. I think the best book that Jimmy and I ever read as newly wed couple was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, kind of an older book. But it really talks a lot about understanding the perspective from the other person's perspective, obviously. Um, Working as a counselor in child and family therapy, one of the most important pieces of relationships obviously is communication. But what happens is the the individuals in the relationship want to fix the problems, and they want to place blame, and they want their spouse to hear them. Oftentimes we don't hear them, and it's the same thing with kids. So really important to listen, right? And more importantly, to validate feelings, right? So to be able to hear and say, okay, what I heard you say is this, this is how you're feeling, right? So to really listen, validate feelings, and have that empathy. That's a huge key to where a lot of couples are missing that connection in their relationship, is really trying to dive into the feeling and the emotion of what the other person is going through.
Okay. So how does this work? I mean, give us some practical things of like, how do we build adversity in life? And we break it down into business and personally. What are some tactics that we can do to build adversity in our business?
You mean to build resilience?
Resilience. Oh, yeah, resilience. Sorry. Yeah, I'm
I was
looking at
going
my
to say
notes.
you already do have the adversity going for you.
Yeah. To combat adversity is what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. So building resilience, comes from the top down in both a professional life as well as a personal life in your family. So, as a company, first thing to remember is that Americans are driven for production, right? We are productive people in nature. So, being productive in our professional and personal lives is highly important to us. So, what happens though is, everyone has their coaches and their their different techniques of how to be productive. And I mean, you guys are all realtors. I'm sure everyone is trying to go to different conferences and figure out the best way to show houses, list houses, so you get the best optimal business for your company. The problem is when we hit adversity, um, our ability to be productive is decreased 40%. So when we're in a major chaotic crisis, adversity, whatever you want to call it, we're only 60% productive. So we have to pay attention to that. And that's where the flexibility comes in and the adaptability, right? If people are not adaptable and flexible, it's not going to help and it's not going to work. We have to be able to take that mindset. Oh, okay, we are in the middle of a crisis. It's okay to take a step back and recognize what I can handle and what I can't handle. And for a company, being able to know that and expect less of a company in this time is perfectly appropriate and recommended, right? Because you can only do so much. And the same thing goes for being a parent when your kid is at home, right? Kids are going through this crisis too. So we cannot expect our kids to be 100% mentally, emotionally available and ready to complete all their assignments and, be on top of it like they normally are. So it's okay. As I was talking to an educator yesterday who is a leader of educators, she said, if nothing else, if your kids can read for 30 minutes a day during this time, that's great, right? It's the teacher's superpower to get them caught up next year, right? And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but the whole idea of resilience really starts from that top down and having that genuine concern, empathy, um, empathetic perspective on the whole situation.
Well, I love where you went with this because I might know somebody that has really high expectations on herself, that has a number of children, that is now having to be a teacher of
Mm-hmm.
multiple grade levels, and going, man, like, what would you say to that person? That's like, now I'm wearing all of these hats. This isn't my expertise, and I feel like I'm not I'm not being exceptional in this area. And what would you say to somebody like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, first, I would say it's really important to get rid of the shoulds. right? Anytime you have a should in your life, it's going to turn out to be negative. So I should be a better parent. I should be a better teacher. I should be doing this. I should, right? That's going to set yourself up mentally and emotionally for failure. So if you catch yourself doing that, try to reframe that thought, right? Um, and then the other thing I would say is in between switching from parent mode to professional mode to whatever mode you're in, take that hat off and take a deep breath and just allow yourself to tell yourself it's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I don't need to be super mom or superman during this time, right? I mean, you're in the middle of a crisis. And like I said, you can only operate 60%. So pay attention to how you feel, right? And control your own emotions during this time because your kids are really going to see how you are handling this whole crisis and situation. And they're going to learn from that. And that's how they're going to build that resilience. But I also would say have grace on yourself, right? Just give yourself that grace, even though it's so hard to give yourself grace. You have to be able to care about yourself and have empathy for yourself during this time and recognize that you just can't do it all, and it's okay not to do it all.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything that a significant other, a spouse, can do to help support that? If they're noticing that that's what's going on in their spouse's life right now.
Well, I think the most important part, again, is the spouse allowing that other spouse to vent, recognizing that they are wearing multiple hats at the time. And, maybe that spouse just needs to have a few choice words, in and away from kids to get all that junk out, feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed. This sucks, having that time just to let it out, but then also just connecting with them and asking them, how can you help, how can I help, what can I do to support you, and not going to that fix it mode, right?
Yeah.
Men are very good at that, but yeah, so just listening to the spouse and genuinely having that empathy. And what I mean by empathy is literally stepping in the other person's shoes and trying to see it from their perspective.
What about for those out there? We have a lot of. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. They're raising kids on their own. They're single. They're going through this. They don't have that other person to be talking to. What are some things that they should be doing to make sure that they're building that resilience, that they're staying healthy, mentally through this, and that they're showing up not only for their family, but they're showing up for themselves in this because they don't have a significant other that they could just turn to and vent to.
hmm I think, first of all, a lot of self care, finding whatever you need to take care of yourself. If that's, having your favorite Netflix movie to show to watch at the end of the day, um, doing whatever you can to make yourself feel um, that mentally and physically you're in a good state. For me, when Jimmy was deployed the second time, I had a 2-year old, a 3-year-old, and I was running a family readiness group. And I didn't have a whole lot of resources. We were in the middle of New York, upstate New York. I was thousands of miles from my family. um, I decided to train for a marathon, right? So, so I was able to, figure out what I needed to make me happy, identify those things and plan those in your day as a part of your everyday. And I think also to remember that with kids, just being there and being present sometimes is enough, right? So don't feel like you need to be that perfect mom and have it all together every day. Sometimes just being there, laying on the couch is enough for them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I had this conversation with my father a while back about having quality time. And he said something very similar to this, saying that, sometimes it's just about having the quantity of time. Like it's just about being there. Not doesn't always have to be the best quality. It's just about being there, and look at like just having the quantity of the time with them. So I love how you said that. So how does somebody? So let's say that they have something tragic happen in their life. And it has nothing to do with COVID. We just are talking now because obviously we're finding out we're all collectively in a situation. But let's say that they're dealing with something traumatic. So they have a divorce. They lose the loved one. What do they need to make sure? Like obviously the world feels like it's closing in on them. Is there anything that you would recommend that they make sure that they do either on a daily basis or on when a moment when they start to go down that path? Is there anything that they can kind of that should trigger them to help them so that they don't go that dark by a
Mhm.
chance?
So, first of all, I would recognize that loss and grief can occur in multiple different facets. It can be a loss of, a kid that struggles in school that has a learning disability. That it could be a loss of a loved one, obviously, a dog, a pet, loss in a relationship. It can be multiple things. Loss of a job. Whenever there's loss, there's going to be stages of loss that you go through, from denial to depression to bargaining to anger, before you can get to that acceptance, and that takes time, and for everyone it can look different. So I would say when people go through something that's tragic, it's important for them to pay attention to where they're at emotionally. And again, that's that self-awareness. um, and when you do that, recognizing where your vulnerabilities are, where your weaknesses are, um, and being able to find the resources to help with those weaknesses and vulnerabilities. So again, it's okay. My mom passed away pretty suddenly a year ago, and in the midst of that, we were dealing with a son that was struggling, and me changing jobs. So there was a lot of stress, and I had to take a step back and realize that I was really sad, right? And it was okay for me to feel sad, and I think that's the most important part in any kind of trial and loss. Is we have to just be okay with being sad and knowing that we are, right? We can't just deny it. We have to
Mm,
accept that it's there, because when we accept it, it actually helps us to heal a little bit better, right? It was really annoying for me after, some people would say after my mom passed away, everything will be okay, right? Just be positive, everything's going to get better soon. Well, at that time, I didn't want to hear that, right? I needed to grieve that loss, and I needed to just feel sad and say, yep, it probably will eventually, but right now I'm really mad and angry and frustrated, and it's okay to be in this place that I'm at. So
that's
accepting that, and then also focusing on your strengths, So, yep, I'm really sad and frustrated, but I also am really resilient, and I can get through this, and and pay attention to what the positive things are in your life. So you got to kind of combat it with the negative with the positive.
Oh, that's great. Hey, that's so good. I'm writing notes down here. So as you're saying this, I'm just really getting some great takeaways here. Hey, real quick, as an audience, yeah, if you have questions, just pull open that chat box and put those questions in there, because I know that Katie's got a very busy day. We were able to squeeze into her day, so we wanted to make sure that we take advantage of this opportunity here. It looks like we have something. James, do you want to pop in here as we kind of get some questions going on here? We're going to try to wrap this up here.
You bet I do. So from Dustin Beck, it says, earlier you mentioned controlling emotions for kids. Any tricks you recommend?
Yes. So when you notice that your child is having a meltdown, don't automatically go to the fix it mode or the discipline mode, right? Notice what they're doing and verbalize it. So I do this in my play therapy room all the time. I'll have a kid that starts freaking out and I'll name how I'm feeling as well as how they're feeling. So I'll be saying, wow, this is really stressful. I feel really nervous and uncomfortable. This isn't very fun. Or, to the kid, wow, you're really angry right now. This is really frustrating. You're just so upset about this. Because what they need in that time is for you to hear them, right? It goes back to that validation and that listening. But what are we so good at as parents doing is you need to stop throwing a temper tantrum right now or else, right? Or going to the fix it mode. Can you please just stop whining, right? But they don't need that. First, they need you to hear them. So if you can just say, wow, this is really not good right now. This is scary. This is not fun. You look really angry. That actually will help them to calm down a little bit. So you actually become the tool for their regulation. It's called mirror imaging in a psychological perspective framework. But so parents have to be the ones with their little ones to be able to regulate. And regulation coping skills look like walking around, shaking your arms, taking deep breaths, massaging your arms. Anything that you need to do to calm yourself down is how they're gonna calm down as well. It's a mirroring technique, because what happens when they get worked up, you get worked up, everybody's worked up, and then everything blows up, right? But if you're calm in the storm, which is, I'm telling you, it's super hard to do. It takes a lot of practice, but really, really important. So I would just say recognize their feelings and say it, and say how you're feeling. Kids will project whatever they're feeling into their play, onto the parents. So whatever you're feeling, they're probably feeling too. But they don't know how to say it because they don't have the language verbally to be able to say it. And it really goes for the same with adults too, right? Just noticing, if a person's body language looks off or sad, just noticing that, wow, you look really sad today. Is there anything I can do to help, right? Just paying attention to the emotion part of it. Hopefully that's helpful a little bit.
Oh, I know exactly how I'm going to be treating our children now. So yes, I think it's very helpful. So a question for you is, how do you build more resilience in your children? We've got one that it doesn't seem that he has a lot of resilience. Is there anything as a parent that we can do to help him walk through as he's faced with challenges? He's growing up. He's going into puberty. He's dealing with junior high. What as a parent, what can we do?
Well, first of all, with a kid going through, adolescence, it's a period of storm and stress to begin with. So they're going to learn in this time by your modeling, even if they're not getting it, even if it looks ugly during this time. They're going to see your behaviors, your reactions. They're going to remember that, and they're going to hold on to that, right? So that's the most important thing I would recommend. And then again, the validation of feelings. And I think also helping them with their ability to reframe their thought processes when they go negative. A lot of times teenagers will just complain. They love to complain about everything, right? Find those opportunities to help them reframe that negative thought, right? So if it's like, we're having spaghetti for dinner, right? And they're like, oh, I hate spaghetti. It's so gross. You can reframe that into, I know you don't like spaghetti. What do you think we should have tomorrow night? And this is what we're having tonight, right? Or, you can just twist anything into a positive. That's probably not a very good example, but just look for those opportunities where you can flip the negative comment on its head. And that comes with a lot of practicing on yourself too, right? Because I know in my mind, I a lot of times will go right to the negative. And that's where I have to be aware that, oh, I just said that I'm really pissed off over whatever, right? So I can flip it and change it into a positive.
Love it. So good, lady. I literally feel like I'm the one going through a therapy session right now. So this has been so helpful for me, and I know that Kate's on this call, and so thank you so much for that.
Well, it's not easy, and I am the first one to tell you that I have failed many times as a parent. I will tell you one situation real quick. When Jimmy was deployed, I was so frustrated with my little toddlers, right? And I had just heard that um, Jimmy's deployment got extended, so I was not in a very good emotional state. And I was trying to make the boys lunch, and whatever they did really made me angry. So I picked up this big block of cheese, those cheese slices, threw it across the room, and exploded everywhere. Right? I'm just so angry, and all the windows are open, and the boys are crying, and then I go outside to calm down, and there's some workers across the street that are just staring at me like, what is that mom doing? Right? We all had those experiences where we don't have it all together. But the cool thing about that is we can apologize, right? And we can say, you know what? That was not a good way to react. I'm going to do better tomorrow. And that's what your kids take away from, right? Because it happens. It's just part of being a parent, part of life. We're all going to have our meltdown. As much as we try to get it right and try to, use our mindfulness and our, positive thinking strategies and control our emotions, we're going to screw up, but we can always repair it. And that's the beauty of resilience, is that we can build it over time. It doesn't come naturally. It's something that is a process. And by going through hardships is how we build that long-term resilience.
Oh, awesome, lady. So good. Hey, James, are there any other questions before we kind of start wrapping this up there, buddy?
Hey, I have one real quick, Katie.
Mhm.
In a lot of the discussions I'm having with these brand new homeschool teachers, they're saying that they don't have the downtime that they used to. They used to have, like, when the kiddos would go off to school or the kiddos would go off to daycare, that gave them time to take care of themselves and kind of fill their own cup.
Mhm.
Those things aren't happening anymore. And as we're having these discussions, believe you me, the kiddos are in the background, and it's, there's a lot of
Mhm.
parenting going on while we're having these calls. Give us some healthy, like, here's been one of the suggestions. Hey man, I'll just put them to bed early, and then I'm going to drink. So give us some healthy options on how do we find that me time? How do we fill our cup without going to that negative stuff?
Right. Well, one technique that I would recommend is to draw a circle and put all of the things that are highly important to you in the middle of the circle, right? And then kind of go through it and decide what parts can we kind of put outside the circle that aren't as important, and what do we really need to keep in. Because know that this time is temporary. We're hopeful it's temporary. So there may be some things in your life right now that are not going to be a priority, right? So being able to accept that, that 45-minute workout that you normally do when the kids are not home, you may need to maybe do 30 minutes, and it's okay. Like, just be okay with that change, right? That's the hardest part, is being able to have that adaptability and that flexibility, just to say, okay, this is temporary, we're going to get through this. I know things aren't quite the same right now, but it will get back to normal soon. Having that positive mindset. So yeah, just paying attention to what's important, put the things that aren't as important on the back burner, right? And that may even include not being so hung up and wrapped up in your kids getting everything done, that their teachers are requiring, right? Some teachers may be requiring too much. It's
Yeah.
okay if they don't get it all done. That's the teacher's job and their superpower next year to help those kids get it back together. So again, give yourself grace in it all. If you can find that time daily to have that self-care, that is definitely really important. But just be okay with not having to do everything perfectly and not having it all together. Really important.
So good.
Great. Thank you
James,
so much.
any other questions, buddy?
That's it. We're getting some pretty resounding, yep, for sure. Yeah. So that's great. Thank you so much for that, Katie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's not easy. I hear you. I wish there was an easy solution and I had like a magic wand that I could just say, do this. And everybody's different and has their own way of coping and dealing with life. But this is a time when everybody really needs to give each other grace from the top down. And that's what's going to help, I think, us recover as a country, as a world. The easiest is if we all have grace and empathy and understanding of what everyone is going through in this trial as we navigate it together. You can only do so much as a human being when you're operating on 60% of your ability to be efficient.
Katie, I love that you keep going back to this word grace. It was definitely a theme that we had last week with the agents. And you're so right. Like, we are so good at giving everybody tremendous grace, but we don't give it to ourselves. So I'm so glad that you kept with that theme, and we didn't even talk about that. So that's really good. So that means that it really truly is a powerful statement. So I'm so glad you did that. So thank you for that. How do people follow you? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? I'm sure that people are going to want to see your posts and kind of see still what's in the thoughts in the mind of you. So
I'm just on Facebook. Yeah, I'm not like on all the different social media networks. Jimmy is, but I'm not.
Yeah. So they can just find you at Katie Kleager.
Yeah, I do have to keep a little bit of my confidentiality and professionalism just with the nature of my job, that protection and of myself. So yeah, but I am on Facebook.
Yeah, well, I think that just that you're not necessarily out there giving advice all the time. I just the fact that people love to follow other people that are inspirational, that are going through challenges. I mean, once again, the post that you shared that really got this conversation started was just seriously a thought that you had. It was just you trying to pour into your friends and those that are in your circle. So I know that a lot of these people that are on this Zoom call would love to just kind of see what your perspective is. So they can just
Sure,
find
yeah.
you.
And if anybody else has any ideas that they've found that are helpful to do with families to build resilience, to help kids be more positive, I would love to hear it for sure. So we all are creative and can work through our kids in positive ways. So I think that we all just work together in this.
Hey, Katie, we had another question come in. It says, do you suggest that we start implementing things to better be able to go back to normal? It will be a big change. And what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think always just talking about it, getting everybody's ideas. I'm not sure if this is coming from more of a societal perspective or more of like a family internally perspective. But yeah, I think it's really important for us to think about what could this look like in the future, and just having those open conversations with kids and with people within your company, starting to plan for that in the future is definitely important. Being prepared and organized with thoughts surrounding that, because that will come up here soon.
Yeah, for sure. Good. All right. Well, once again, Katie, thank you so much. This was awesome. I know we could keep going here. So, but we all have a lot of things going on, and you most certainly have a ton of stuff going on. So, I really want to respect your time. As we kind of close this down, I have some key takeaways, some notes that hopefully I'm sure that all of you guys were taking notes on. But the book that Katie referred to was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I love the fact that you're talking about it's okay to vent. It's good to vent. It's okay to get that frustration out. I love the fact that you're saying that adversity lessens us by 40%. What a great image to think of as we are moving into even more of this uncertainty, and one of the expectations of us being out of this and being back to what normal would look like in the future. I love that, get rid of the shoulds because it opens up failure. I mean, that is so good. Awesome. I love that, your kids are watching. Allow yourself to say it's going to be okay because they're watching you. I love, I'm just looking through all my notes here. When your child's melting down, don't try to fix them. Recognize where they're at, share their emotions, share your emotions. I think that's so good. And I love to draw a circle. Oh my gosh. I mean, how perfect is that? Talk about really, really putting a visual to the things that are really important. And I mean, as a spouse or as a significant other, it's really good to see what those priorities are, because I think oftentimes we think we know what they feel is important to them. And so we're trying to pour into that. But if we actually really are able to see what's in the circle, then I think that would really give everybody the opportunity to help each other out. So I just really, really great takeaways. I just want to thank everybody that's been on the call and your questions. I know that from just the comments, Katie, this was awesome. You really poured into them, and they really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. Just can't tell you how much we appreciate you for being on this call. So thank you so much.
Yes, I totally appreciate giving me the opportunity to do this. One last note that I thought about, and I could talk about this forever, but please be careful not to judge yourself against others in your professional and your personal life right now, because a lot of people are continuing to be very successful in their real estate careers and whatever life, and some people may just not have that energy right now. So please don't judge yourself against other people right now. Just recognize what you can take on in this moment, because the emotional health is much more important than anything you can do in your career life. So hang in there. You're building resilience, even if you don't realize it. We're gonna get through it.
I love that. It reminds me of this quote I've been hearing the last couple of days, is that we're all in the same storm, but we're all on different boats.
Yep.
And so what a really great analogy to think about. So fantastic. Hey, really quick, you guys, as we close this session, I just want to let you know about the things that are coming up. Tomorrow's agenda, we have the Common Connection, again, at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We are going to actually have the spouse of Katie on, Jimmy, her awesome husband. He's going to be speaking, Keenan Coit and a gentleman named Justin Winston. These are real estate agents, 2 from Grand Junction, 1 from Twin Falls. And they're going to be talking specifically how to profit on purpose in 2020, what they're doing right now that they believe is going to be able to help them be profitable in 2020. So you're not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be an awesome call. And then at 12 o'clock, we've had those AMA calls, Ask Me Anything calls, and we're going to have Jason Pantana. Jason Pantana is the gentleman that leads the Tom Ferry Marketing Edge. He's the guru for them, and he's going to be on a 12 o'clock call. So you don't want to miss that one. And then we're going to wrap up this week on Friday at 11:30 with the one and only Tom Ferry. So you don't want to miss that call. That's going to be on the AMA call as well. So we got a lot of great content, and Katie blessed us by opening this this Common Connections class that we've got going on. So thank you for living up to all the expectations that I put on this day, Katie. It's awesome, and I know people really benefited from it. So
awesome, no problem. You guys all take care.
Okay, all right, guys, have a great one, and we will see you soon.